HVAC 360, episode number 50, Comnet. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of HVAC 360. I'm your host, Matt Nelson. Hey, this week we're going to talk with Charles Eley. Charles is the chair of the Comnet Standing Committee regarding Comnet. I guess that was a little bit obvious, but today we're going to explain a little bit about what Comnet is and what it means to the building community and the energy modeling community. I think it's something that's a topic that has recently changed and evolved recently with the introduction of the Comnet Portal. We'll kind of explain that a little bit when we talk to Charles. So I think that'll do on the front end. So let's cut to the tape with Charles. Here we go. All right. This week we're talking with Charles Eley, who is the chair of Comnet. How are you doing, Charles?
Good, thank you.
So, tell me a little bit about what your background is in with Comnet.
Well, my personal background is I'm an architect and a mechanical engineer, and I've been working to make buildings more energy efficient for about 35 years. I ran my own consulting company which was called Eley Associates, for 25 years. We merged with Architectural Energy Corporation in 2004, and we've grown to be a pretty important company. I'm now retired from Architectural Energy Corporation and spending more time on nonprofit boards and efforts like Comnet.
So now, what can you explain a little bit about what Comnet is, how that kind of fits into everything? Okay.
Well, many programs for energy efficiency, whether they're utility programs or LEED for new buildings or US EPA's Design to Earn Energy Star or federal tax credits, depend on making an estimate of building energy performance using energy simulation programs, hourly simulation programs like DOE2 or Energy Pro or Energy Plus, Train Trace, or Carrier HAP. And what Comnet does is it sets standards for how those calculations are performed. And part of the quality assurance program is accrediting software that meets those standards. So Comnet is organized as a partnership of nonprofits. One of the members of Comnet is the ResNet, which is the Residential Energy Services Network, a group that rates residential buildings, and the other group is the New Buildings Institute, which is sort of a think tank in the Washington, Oregon area that works towards building energy efficiency, focusing more on the commercial building side. So that's how Comnet is organized. And yes, I'm the chair of the Comnet Standing Committee.
Now, ResNet has been out there for quite some time that I'm familiar with. Why has Comnet taken so long to develop something like this?
Well, it's true. ResNet's been around for some time, and one of the things about Comnet is it helps to provide some of the services for the commercial building sector that ResNet has provided for residences. The precedents, there are some precedents for Comnet in California. Software that's used for code compliance has to be accredited by the California Energy Commission. And some of the Comnet program is sort of modeled after the California program, which is among energy nerds known as the California ACM, or Alternative Calculation Method. But it's the software that's used for commercial building analysis is extremely complex, and it's a difficult job to develop and implement standards for its use.
Now, I guess what's new with Comnet? What is obviously there's something that's just starting to be proposed or is coming out currently. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, the part that's being released now is a different part. It's called the Comnet Portal, and the Comnet Portal is a web interface through which energy analysis results pass. So the portal will interpret results from any software application like eQuest or Energy Pro or Carrier App, and it goes into a common database. And from there, rating authorities like U.S. EPA or LEED, U.S. Green Building Council, can download the information in a consistent format. And as the data passes through the portal, there's some quality assurance checks that are made to make sure that all the results are there and that they meet certain standards. So that's about to be released, and that'll be a part of lead automation. And this is both a quality assurance program and also a productivity tool, because it's going to save a lot of time filling out forms and entering data into a web interface. And there's thousands of numbers that are handled in this process, and it's all machine read and machine output. So that'll reduce errors and increase productivity, reduce the cost of doing energy simulations.
Now, I know that energy simulations, the energy model for LEED, is one of the things that really is not only a sticking point for most of the people reviewing it, but also it's probably one of the more difficult things for engineers to do properly. I mean, nobody goes through LEED review process unscathed when it comes to the energy model. Is Comnet hoping to smooth that out?
Yes, absolutely. There's several aspects of Comnet that would make that process more smooth. One is that Comnet accredited software would automatically create the baseline building. Another is that Comnet accredited software would create output in a common format, so that if a rating authority were looking at the results from Trace or Energy Plus, it would be in a common format that they could understand. And also Comnet has some quality checks that verify that the simulation results are accurate according to industry standards, and it also has a number of default values. For instance, things like plug loads in buildings, which often aren't really understood that well when the model is created, and so Comnet provides defaults. So we automatically create the baseline building. We create standard output reports. We do quality assurance checks on accuracy and provide defaults. There's some other aspects too, but those are the four main points.
Okay. So ultimately, it's gonna lead to something that if a local authority were to ask, hey, can I get the Comnet output, that would kind of give their pass-fail to the energy model and the building itself, correct?
That's right. Yeah, if a local authority, whether it's USGBC or, well, they're not local, they're national, but if a code jurisdiction, for instance, or a rating authority like USGBC could specify that Comnet software be used for their purposes, and when they did so, they would be assured that the baseline building would be created correctly and automatically, so that there's no gaming there, and it would also assure that the reports are produced in a common format that they can understand, and it would assure that the Comnet has passed, or that the software has passed these quality assurance checks and are using the correct faults.
Now, is Comnet being integrated? I know that H3 has a building EQ program where they have a baseline energy model. Is this? Have you done any work with integrating into that in that system at all?
Yes, building EQ. I'm on the building EQ committee with H3, and building EQ is using the Comnet modeling guidelines and procedures for its asset rating, or I call it as designed rating, which requires simulations. And again, a baseline building is created for the building EQ as design program or asset program, and that Comnet accredited software would automatically create that baseline building.
So, engineering firms, they have, whether or not they have, eQuest or Train or HAP, they'll have some sort of modeling software currently. And, if they want to get in line with, being, Comnet compliant or being able to start integrating their practices and procedures into what Comnet has established, what sort of steps are they going to need to take to be able to do that?
Well, in the short term, what they can do is go to the Comnet website, which is Comnet, COMNET.org, and they go to the what we call the MGP, or the Modeling Guidelines and Procedures, and those modeling guidelines and procedures lay out step by step the process for them to follow as they do their modeling. Ultimately, we expect that software will automatically create these features and automatically create the baseline building, and at that point, they would just make sure that they purchase or license Comnet accredited software.
So right now, the current practice would be to follow the guidelines, and if they wanted to, either now or shortly in the future, submit the outputs to the portal. Is that correct? And then the next step after that is just to have it all wrapped up into the standard software package that they would be using.
That's correct. Right now it's necessary for them to create their own baseline building, and in fact, for many cases, there's actually 4 baseline buildings. It's the baseline building rotated 4 times, so that orientation is averaged into the baseline. So you would go to the portal and you would submit the eQuest files for each of the 4 orientation-based baselines, and another eQuest file for your rated building. And all that would go through the portal, and there'd be some quality assurance checks, and then it would be there in a common data format for USGBC or any other rating authority to download and use. But ultimately, that process could be automated, where when you finish your results in eQuest or whatever the software application is that you're using, there could be an option within your software to submit this to the Comnet Portal, and then it would just all automatically go up and be there for the rating authorities to use.
Now, has there been any data that's gone through the portal yet, or has it just been some preliminary testing that you've done behind the scenes?
Well, I'm not sure. I think the portal was only released around three or 4 weeks ago, and we did extensive testing on it before it was released, and it's now actually in I think it's called a beta format, so there's no cost for using it at present. But we tested the portal with eQuest, which is one of the most widely used software applications, and we tested it to be compatible with USGBC's lead automation system. I know that there's several other software vendors who have made their software compliant with Comnet's XML. The common format inside the portal is what we call a Comnet XML, which is an extended markup language. It's a common data format for hierarchical data like a building model.
Now, I guess, and obviously just from what you've heard, has there been, rumors or ideas or things like that, of software companies, estimating, when they anticipate maybe coming out with something that is,
Comnet compliant?
Yeah. Is that 6 months, a year out?
Well, that's a good question. I don't really know. I know there's several software companies that are working toward that goal. I don't want to name them or anything, but it's not our job to develop software. It's our job to write a standard for the software and to accredit that software as being compliant with the standard.
Okay.
So we try to keep some distance. We're not out to promote one software application over another. We want to be as neutral as we can in that regard. And many of the requirements in Comnet are based on ASHRAE Standard 90.1, and in particular, the performance rating method of 90.1, which is located in Appendix G. And insofar as that procedure is maybe biased towards one software application or another, we can't really do anything about that because that's the underlying standard that we're dealing with. But our goal with Comnet is to be completely neutral with regard to software applications.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, exactly, once the the software gets integrated and you've approved software for the different people, and I guess that's probably going to be the next step. What does the future roadmap look for Comnet? Is it just trying to become a more unifying standard of commercial buildings, or
Well, Comnet's vision is to propagate and run a quality assurance program that will bring confidence and reliability and replicability to the process of doing energy simulations. one of the problems with energy simulations is that there's so many inputs and so many ways to manipulate the results that some people will say, well, gosh, if I have this modeler do it or this modeler do it, I get completely different results. And what we're trying to do with Comnet is set standards so that those variances go away. And if you have two modelers do the same building, even with different software, the results will be similar and compatible and replicable.
So, if there is anyone out there that is interested in helping out, with the process, is that available, or what's the best way for people to help out if they want to get involved? I mean, if this is really what they like to do, is there some avenues that they can do to help?
Absolutely. Comnet has the Comnet organization is managed by the standing committee, which I chair, but we also have technical committees. We have promotion committees. We have marketing groups. We have various other things. So the best way to get involved is just indicate either directly to me or they can send an email to info@comnet.org, and we have a process for putting together committees. In fact, we're sort of in the process right now of expanding the technical committee. So if there's people that would like to participate on the technical side of what's going on with Comnet, now would be a good time to raise their hand.
And what about those people who, just want to get more information about Comnet, and maybe, I don't know, are there, aside from the guidelines that you'd mentioned, following those guidelines, are there other things that, other educational avenues or opportunities that people can take advantage of?
Yes, there are. There's sometimes we make presentations at various conferences, ResNet conference, for instance, and others. Also, if one of your listeners goes to comnet.org and click on presentations, there's about 12 20-minute presentations on the details of Comnet that they can listen to. These are recordings of webinars that we've done on Comnet, and that'd be a good way to get an introduction to it. Or they could go to comnet.org/MGP and can review the modeling guidelines and procedures there. And we have on that website, there's an easy way where users can register at the website, and then once they've registered, they can make comments about any of the modeling guidelines and procedures that are discussed. And they can have a whole discussion stream going on there about the appropriateness of one thing or another.
Great. So I guess anything that you feel that we haven't covered today?
No, I think this has been good. I'm glad to have an opportunity to share my experience with Comnet. I'm excited about it. I hope it's going to be an important part of the energy modeling future in the United States and maybe beyond.
Excellent. All right. Well, I appreciate you taking your time and talking with us. So thank you very much, Charles.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
All right. And we're back. A special thanks to Charles again to taking the time out of his schedule to talk with us. I think it was something that's very valuable. I mean, I think that the points that Charles made about you could have a building and you could give it to two different designers or energy modelers and they'd give you two different results. I think that kind of really speaks to the fact of the need for a kind of a unifying standard for evaluating commercial buildings. And I'm glad that Comnet is evolving to fill that gap. I'm also glad that it's as a big proponent of ASHRAE that it is integrating into the building EQ to be able to get that rating there. So I look forward to the day that you can just use your energy modeling software of choice, hit the button to submit it to Comnet, and get all the data that you need. For submission, and I know that it's a really big heartache for anybody going through the lead process. If you're familiar with it or not, or if you're familiar with it or not, going through that building energy model simulation is one of those difficult things that I don't think the reviewer really likes so much. But just being able to have some apples to apples comparison of going through the process of being able to do that. I know that going through the process, at least in Ohio, with the Building Ohio School Facility Commission, we had built a number of buildings, and obviously throughout the past 5-10 years, there's a number of brand new school buildings, but there wasn't any sort of basis that they could take the energy modeling evaluation on these buildings and compare them apples to apples. They made a great effort at the end, or recently, I should say, not necessarily the end, but recently, to require an eQuest. And if somebody's been using HAP, and they have to use eQuest, it's an entirely different learning curve. I mean, the software, the interface is just different. For an engineer, that's something that's not necessarily pleasant. But obviously, they're going to do what they need to do to get the job done. But that was their recourse, to have everybody use the same modeling software, so that they could take the outputs and they could compare everything apples to apples, and they would know that they've gone through the process of having the four different exposures and your design conditions, and to make sure that everything was done right. It would have been a lot simpler to have everything that would be Comnet compliant software, and have standardized outputs that they could it wouldn't matter what they used. The facility commission could actually have looked at that output and said, "Oh, right, I know what I'm getting, and it makes sense, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's no red flags or anything like that." So that would have been a great help to the people of the Ohio School Facility Commission, and hopefully, if any building projects come up and obviously worked into a standard, if there's a lot of buildings going on, Comnet definitely sounds like the way to go. It's leveling the playing field and getting that agreement amongst all the building energy modelers. So with that, I'll make a plug. If you're a building energy modeler out there and you haven't taken a look at ASHRAE's BEMP, the Building Energy Modeling Professional, take a look at that. That's obviously definitely a way to distinguish yourself in the building energy modeling profession. And if otherwise, another thing that if you want to get involved with energy modeling, and that's really you like that thing, IBIPSA is the another organization that you can take a look at. So you don't have to write everything down. I will just go to the website buildingx.co, and I will have that in the show notes. So you don't have to remember that. I will remember it for you. That's just the kind of guy I am. So I appreciate each and every one of you listening. It's been great doing these. Hopefully I can come out with them on a semi-regular basis. And I think appreciate each and every one of you. if you have any comments, if you like this episode, you didn't like this episode, you have any feedback for me, please let me know. You can reach me at matt@buildingx.co, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn and just find me there. If you Twitter, sometimes I'll usually post the episodes, or at least identify the episodes when they come out. That's at BuildingX. Or otherwise, I think that's pretty much it. All right. Thanks for listening. We'll wrap this up. So until next time, remember, know what you build and share what you know.